Her name was Grace Ellison. She was 47, worked at the city library, and walked everywhere she could. Not because she didn't own a car, not because she was into fitness. She walked because it helped her think, helped her feel, helped her breathe. Every Friday afternoon, after her shift at the library, Grace walked to Jefferson Park, the small one between the post office and the old train tracks. And every Friday, she sat on the same bench. The one under the elm tree, the one with the worn-down wooden slats, the one that faced the sidewalk but stayed half in shadow. She would sit for a while, quiet, then untie her sneakers. Old but clean, size 8.5, laces double-knotted, soles gently worn, and when she left, she never took them with her. People started noticing. First a jogger, then a dog walker, then the man who played guitar near the fountain. Every Friday evening, without fail, there was a pair of sneakers sitting neatly on the bench, sometimes a hoodie folded beneath them, sometimes a pair of socks tucked inside, always clean, always left with care. Some assumed she forgot them. Others thought she was donating to some secret cause. But Grace never told anyone. She'd leave her shift, change into a spare pair she kept in her locker, and walk away, leaving the bench and the shoes behind. No note, no tag, just a quiet act. Because some kindness doesn't shout. It sits still, waiting for the right feet to find it. Jefferson Park wasn't fancy. A few benches, some patchy grass, a crooked swing set kids still fought over. But it was a place of movement, where people passed through, sat briefly, and disappeared again. A small world inside a busy one. Homeless teens sometimes gathered near the back tree line. They stayed quiet, mostly invisible. No one told them to leave, but no one really invited them to stay either. Grace had seen them before, saw how they avoided the spotlight, how they kept their heads down, how they disappeared before the streetlights came on. And that's why she chose Friday. And that's why she chose the bench under the elm. Because if someone needed help, they wouldn't ask for it. They'd just find it waiting. It was the third Friday in October. The leaves were falling heavy now, swirling in the wind like paper confetti. Grace left a pair of gray sneakers that day, gently wiped, laces knotted, a pair of thick socks folded inside. She placed them on the bench, like always. Then turned and walked toward the sidewalk. Halfway down the path, she paused, as she often did, and looked back one more time, just to be sure. That's when she saw it. A folded piece of paper, wedged under the shoes. Her heart skipped. She walked back, slowly, unsure whether to touch it. But curiosity, and something deeper, pulled her forward. She picked up the note, and unfolded it with careful fingers. It read, "I don't know who you are, but I've been wearing your shoes for 3 weeks now. I sleep near the bus station. My name's Taylor. Thank you for seeing someone like me, even when I couldn't look at myself." Her breath caught. She folded the paper again, slower this time. The wind tugged at her coat, but she didn't move, because suddenly, this small bench in a quiet park wasn't just a place to leave shoes. It was a bridge, and someone had finally stepped onto the other side. Grace didn't sleep much that night. The note stayed folded on her kitchen counter. She made tea and didn't drink it. She sat in her robe, staring out the window, wondering how many times someone named Taylor had walked through the park in shoes that used to be hers. She imagined Taylor's face. Boy? Girl? Teenager? Did it matter? All she knew was this: someone out there felt invisible, and her small habit, leaving shoes, had told them, "You're not." That next Friday, Grace walked to the bench like usual, but this time, her bag was heavier. Inside she carried a pair of boots, waterproof and lined, a small packet of Band-Aids, a granola bar, and 2 apples, and a note of her own. She set the boots down carefully, then tucked the folded note into the left one, just behind the heel. It read, "Taylor, I see you. I don't need to know your story to care about your comfort. Take what you need, and when you can, pass it on. You matter. G." She didn't sign her full name. She didn't expect a reply, but she left the bench that night, with a quiet hope she hadn't felt in years. For the next few weeks, the bench became a meeting place without meetings. Grace never saw Taylor. Taylor never waited for Grace. But the space between them, filled with something more than footsteps. Every Friday, Grace left new items, socks, a hoodie, sometimes small toiletries in a sealed bag. Taylor left a note, short, scribbled, always folded with care. The hoodie helped. Cold got bad last night. Passed a pair of shoes to another kid. Size 10, he cried. You don't know me, but I think about you every time. I feel warm. Grace saved every note in a shoebox by her bed. And each week, she found herself smiling more. Not just because she was helping, but because someone out there trusted her. One Friday, Grace arrived early, earlier than usual. She wasn't sure why. Maybe the sky looked heavy with snow. Maybe her heart felt full. Maybe she just wanted to see. She sat down on the bench, with her bag in her lap, waited. For the first time in 3 months, and then soft footsteps. A figure slim, and wrapped in layers, hood pulled low. Grace looked up, and so did they. Their eyes met, and for a long moment, nothing moved. Then slowly, the figure stepped closer, and whispered, "Are you G?" Grace nodded. Her throat was tight, her eyes already full. "I'm Taylor." They smiled. And that was how a giver and a receiver, once strangers tied together by cloth and silence, finally stood in the same space. Taylor sat down on the other end of the bench, still cautious, still holding the strap of their backpack, like it might disappear. Grace didn't rush them. She just sat quietly beside this brave teen, who had lived through too many cold nights and too many silent mornings. Finally Taylor spoke. "I never meant to stay this long. I was just supposed to pass through. But then I found the shoes, and I started waiting for Fridays." Grace nodded. "So did I." They talked for almost an hour, about the shelter closing, about the night it rained, and Taylor had to find cover under a bus stop, about how walking in worn shoes hurts your soul as much as your soul's. Grace never asked where Taylor's parents were. She didn't need to. She only asked, "What size coat do you wear?" The next Friday, Taylor didn't just find a coat. They found a plan. Grace connected with a local outreach worker at the library. She helped Taylor get a bed in a youth housing program that very week. She helped with ID paperwork, a backpack for job interviews, and made sure Taylor always had something warm to wear, not just on Fridays. And Taylor, they started volunteering at the library. They helped shelve books. They showed up early. They stayed late. The bench became just a bench again, because sometimes kindness outgrows the place it started in. 6 months later, Taylor spoke at the community center. There were maybe 30 people in the room, teachers, outreach workers, church members and strangers. But Grace was in the front row. Taylor held up one of the old notes. "I didn't know if I mattered. Then one day, I found a pair of shoes. And every week after that, they came back. And they said, without speaking, 'You're not forgotten.'" The crowd clapped, not wild applause, but slow, quiet, tearful clapping, the kind that sticks with you. Later the city installed a small plaque beside the bench in Jefferson Park. It read, "In honor of silent kindness, one act, one pair of shoes, a new beginning." And underneath that, smaller to G, who left more than souls, she gave someone their soul back. T. Taylor still visits the bench sometimes, not to sleep, not to wait, just to remember. And Grace, she doesn't leave shoes anymore, but she always carries an extra pair in her trunk. Because you never know who might be walking a path harder than they let on. She never asked for thanks. She just left a pair of shoes. But when a stranger's note appeared, the kindness she gave came walking back. Because sometimes, the smallest gift builds the biggest bridge, from one lonely life to another.